Jack Hibbs is a televangelist I don't talk about very often, but I have covered him a couple times before. I don't think I've covered this specific clip of his, but I wanted to reintroduce you to him because he's relevant to the story that we're going to be talking about. So let me just give you a little bit of an introduction to the guy, kind of give you a reminder of who he is and what he believes and things like that, and then we'll get into the main story here. This is Jack Hibbs. As I said, he's a televangelist. This clip came out mid-July 2021. Let's just watch and see what he's all about.
When two people of the same sex get together, it's out of sheer wanton lust and pleasure only, for self.
I have no idea how he came to that conclusion, but that is simply incorrect. I honestly have no idea where he's coming from with this.
Nothing comes of it.
Okay, is he saying they can't have kids? That's not technically true. First of all, they can adopt. Second, they can do surrogate parenting, and science is getting us places right now. There may come a time when two men can produce a child. Like, we can modify the sperm cell to be an egg or something like that. Like, I don't know. Science is taking us interesting places right now. The point here is that this argument that you're providing to us right now hinges on the idea that we will never make scientific progress in this field. The moment that we do, your argument's going to be completely and totally worthless. So I would reconsider this argument you're laying down. Of course, the guy is laying this argument down for his audience, for his church members, not for us. So it really doesn't matter. His church members will nod their head when he says things like this anyways, even if it is fallacious, even if it doesn't make any sense, even if it doesn't add up. It doesn't matter. They will listen and smile and nod their head anyways. Keep listening.
No life can come from it. No family can come from it. And let me insert this. If you're an evolutionist, you have to be against same-sex union.
I'm not sure what he means by evolutionist. I assume he means people who accept the science on the theory of evolution. Why would I have to be against anybody at all if I accept science on a certain subject? Here's the reason why he's coming at it from this angle in the first place. He's viewing it as an ideology. He views it as an ideology, just like Christianity. He thinks that's how things that he disagrees with work. He views them as religions. It's not. It's simply not.
If you're an evolutionist, and by the way, where have been the evolutionists on this topic?
There are no evolutionists. There is no such thing. It's a fabricated word. There are people who accept the science on the theory of evolution, and there are people like you. There are no evolutionists who have an overarching ideology, who believe certain things and build their whole moral system around it. It's not a moral system. It's simply a scientific fact.
Because, listen, if you're an evolutionist, what is one of the statements? It's the survival of the fittest.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a clumsy saying that is not well understood and is misused a lot. It's not really survival of the fittest. It's survival of those who survive the best, I guess, more than anything. You don't have to be the fittest. You don't have to be the strongest or the fastest. You just have to have some kind of an adaptation that makes you survive longer and better, and that's it. And over the span of 100,000 years or 1,000,000 years or 5,000,000 years, populations who have that gene survive the best and reproduce the most, and populations who don't have that gene don't survive as well. It's bred into the population. That's how this works. And interestingly enough, just about every creationist out there, which it seems clear to me now that this guy is obviously a creationist, a young earth creationist, pretty much every young earth creationist out there will accept quote-unquote microevolution. There really is no such thing. There's just evolution. And when you accept microevolution, as they call it, you've just accepted evolution. That's all you need to get to where I am. You just need microevolution, and you need the Earth to be as old as it is, which is 4.5 billion years old or so. That's all you need, and suddenly you accept the science behind evolution just like me. Really, the only difference is the age of the Earth. That's really their hang-up with evolution.
Right? And in evolutionary theory, the survival of the fittest has to procreate.
Okay, so what I get the impression what he's saying here is, hang on, let me listen one more time.
And in evolutionary theory, the survival of the fittest has to procreate.
Selection is an aspect to it, yes. You can still reproduce if you're gay. I don't know if you realize this or not, Jack, but, people still have the necessary parts. I mean, they're still capable of reproduction. Does he think that, things just fall off when you come out as gay? What is he even thinking?
But if evolution's true, then there would be no such thing as homosexuality.
That's right.
Listen to all the people in the background. That's right. Oh my God, dude. Okay, interesting line of thinking. Let's go there. Let's keep listening.
Then there would be no such thing as homosexuality.
That's right.
Because over the last 400 trillion, billion, zillion, quadbillion, zillion, nillion years, evolution would have washed that out.
This is a complete conspiracy theory, the idea that evolution isn't real and that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. It is a conspiracy theory. It really is. No different than Flat Earth or any of the other conspiracies out there. It's exactly the same. But, he did bring up an interesting point. There's an article on BBC.com. BBC is a reasonably trustworthy news outlet. I go to them for some of my news. I heavily focus on AP News and Reuters. That's where I want to get all of my news. If they're not saying it, then I don't trust it generally. But BBC isn't bad. BBC is okay. So let's just take a quick glance at this article on BBC, The Evolutionary Puzzle of Homosexuality, because it does make you wonder. He brought up an interesting point. How did this evolve? Because large swaths of populations, not just humans, but rams have long-term homosexual relationships, 10% of the ram population or something. He brought up the interesting point, which is, how did that evolve? BBC talks about it a little bit here. So let's just kind of read a little bit. This subheading in the article is the genes that code for homosexuality do other things too. Some of this is speculation, of course, so take it with a grain of salt, but this is what BBC had to say. The allele or group of genes that sometimes codes for homosexual orientation may at other times have strong reproductive benefit. This would compensate for gay people's lack of reproduction and ensure that the continuation of the trait as non-gay carriers of the gene pass it down. Oh, and another thing that this article points out is that most people are on a spectrum between gay and straight, and it's incredibly rare to find somebody who is fully 100% completely gay. Now, I haven't seen the statistics on that. It is a BBC article, so I do lend it a little bit of credibility and trust because it's coming from BBC. But yeah, just take everything you read with a grain of salt unless you're looking at scientific articles specifically. There are two more ways this might happen. One possibility is that the allele confers a psychological trait that makes straight men more attractive to women or straight women more attractive to men. We know that women tend to like more feminine behavioral features and facial features in their men, and that might be associated with things like good presenting skills or greater empathy, says Kwasi Raman, co-author of Born Gay, The Psychology of Sex Orientation. Therefore, the theory goes a low dose, quote-unquote, of these alleles enhances the carrier's chances of reproductive success. Every now and then, a family member receives a larger dose that affects his or her sexual orientation, but the allele still has an overall reproductive advantage. I find it interesting that Jack Hibbs over here decided to try to throw this gotcha out here, when in reality it's not a gotcha. It doesn't prove evolution wrong or something like that. Evolution has been proven true over and over again. There really is no way to eliminate evolution as a scientific theory. It's here to stay. It is what it is, whether Jack Hibbs likes that or not. But he does ask interesting questions in an attempt to destroy it. Emily Sigmund, from an evolution standpoint, having members who are gay means you have people who will put their own weight yet not create more mouths to feed. Yeah, pull their own weight, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's true. There are a lot of evolutionary explanations for why this adaptation developed and spread. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous that Jack Hibbs was trying to use it as a gotcha moment, like disproved evolution just now. The guy is absolutely ridiculous from top to bottom. What do theists think about when God created humans with unnecessary body hair? What's the purpose? For most humans, it's not thick enough to keep us warm in the winter, so what do they think its purpose is? They don't think that far ahead. The thing is, like with evolution, we have a ton of vestigial things. Like our nips, for example, we don't need these. Men don't. Women have a use for them. What's the purpose of men having them? What's the purpose of having a tailbone? Where did that even come from? Why do we have these things? There are a billion vestigial things on humans. There are a billion things that we don't need that serve absolutely, literally no purpose for us, but we still have them. Why? They don't need an answer for that in their minds. They don't want to find an answer for that. They ignore it completely. They just try to poke at culture war issues and spread their conspiracy in any form they possibly can, their young earth conspiracy.
Homosexuality, LGBTQ actions prove the existence of God.
No, even if there was no explanation for this, even if you disproved evolution, it would not prove God was real. And even if it did prove God was real, I mean, we're multiple degrees removed now, but even if it did, it wouldn't prove that your God exists. It wouldn't prove that Yahweh, Father of Jesus, exists.
Because God's word says this would be some of the outcome and actions of the last days.
Yeah, so that's Jack Hibbs. Like I said, this clip came out mid-July 2021, so not really that old, but he released a new clip recently because we had some events unfolding in the U.S. If you're from outside the U.S., let me explain. We have a Supreme Court here, and the Supreme Court is capable of basically writing up big drafts, like 100-page drafts that describe decisions that they make. So the Supreme Court is tasked with looking at cases that are brought before them and deciding if they align with the Constitution or not. Are they constitutional or not? So I think 50 years ago in the 70s, they faced a case called Roe v. Wade, and the case was about whether or not abortion should be legal, if people should be allowed to run abortion clinics or whatever else, right? The Supreme Court in the 70s decided that, yes, in fact, it is constitutional to a point. Now, the draft that they wrote at the time, like I said, a big, long set of papers, like an essay, basically, describing at what point it would be wrong. And the Supreme Court at the time decided that past 20 weeks was wrong, basically. That's what they decided at the time, or something like that. So in the draft, there was a big list of rules and expectations and regulations that you should follow and things like that. It was almost like a legal document. It was basically it was almost like a law that they wrote describing when it's okay to do it and when it's not okay to do it. And Roe v. Wade, that case, has stood strong for 50 years until now. I don't think it's officially been voted on yet. I'm not super sure, but you remember that big long document I described that they write to explain everything that they want to explain about how they think that this should work? It's called a draft opinion, basically. That leaked from the Supreme Court. One of our Supreme Court justices wrote a 100-page draft opinion about how it should work, and it leaked to the public, which means they've already discussed it, and they are, in fact, overturning Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court of the U.S. has jurisdiction federally, so what they just did was they erased the right to have an abortion countrywide. So now states have the ability to legalize or illegalize abortion. It's up to the states now. I think 23 states or some crazy thing like that have made abortion illegal. Some of them have even talked about instituting the death penalty for people who have it done. I mean, these people claim to be pro-life. You know what? Don't even send me down this road. We'll never get out. These people claim to be pro-life, but they're giving the death penalty to people for this. It's just so backwards. When you realize it's not about moral consistency or morals at all, everything starts to make sense. When you realize the decisions that these people make are not intended to be logical they're not based on logic in any way, then their decisions start to make sense. It is only about hurting their enemy. So once you see it from that perspective, you realize what they're doing and why they're doing it, and it could be used as a useful predictive tool. Okay, so now that you have that background into what Roe v. Wade was and why it's bad that it's been reversed, listen to Jack Hibbs here talking about it. I'm not really sure why he appears to be wearing some kind of it looks like a judge robe. I don't know why he's wearing this, but anyway, listen to his opinion on this. Early May 2022. This is after the draft leaked.
Let me tell you something. The Democrat Party is a death cult. Every single Democrat voted to babies up in Sacramento last week. And what's going to wake us up?
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe I'm missing something. Like maybe I'm missing some information about some bill that passed recently in California or something. This is an incredibly pivotal moment in U.S. history when Roe v. Wade is being abolished. It's extremely concerning and disconcerting. But I do have some good news. So we'll look at the good news in a couple of minutes. Stick around if you want to hear a little bit of the good news with Roe v. Wade. But did you notice what he said there? The Democratic Party is a death cult. Isn't it interesting to hear them describe the Democrats as a death cult? Everything they do is projection. It's all projection.
Where's the pulpits? Where's the pastors? This is the last call.
They really shouldn't be getting involved in politics. If they specifically endorse or oppose specific candidates, they're supposed to lose their tax-exempt status. Unfortunately, the IRS hasn't been enforcing that rule. That is in U.S. tax code. The Johnson Amendment is what it's called. Not for nothing, but Jack Hibbs himself even specifically endorsed a political candidate, held a campaign event at his church for a political candidate, Larry Elder, during when there was that vote to get Gavin Newsom out and his opponent Larry Elder in not too long ago. Jack Hibbs held a full-blown political rally at his church and collected donations for the guy.
I've seen churches now, instead of putting the gospel on the marquee of the church, that church now says Black Lives Matter. But they got the acronym wrong.
BLM, the acronym BLM. Okay, Jack, what's the acronym supposed to stand for?
BLM. It really means because Larry matters. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Larry Elder this morning.
Actually held a full-blown campaign rally for a guy. Seriously, he's supposed to have his tax-exempt status removed for doing something like that. So, back to what he was saying here. Where are the preachers, blah, blah, blah? There's supposed to be a wall of separation between the church and the state. Not every pastor out there is obsessed with destroying the separation between church and state and turning this into a theocracy. Not every pastor out there is like that. Just you and a handful of your friends, and they've come to the point now where they are nearly succeeding in that effort.
Where's the pulpits? Where's the pastors? This is the last call. God is not going to put up with it anymore. If there was an ark being built, I could hear the doors, the hinges starting to creak as that door is beginning to shut.
You know how long people have been saying that? Do you have any idea how long pastors have been telling their congregations that the end is coming any 5 minutes now? Jesus' disciples believed it was coming in their day. It's been happening since the very beginning. Since the start, the literal start of Christianity, pastors have been saying this. So forgive me if I'm having trouble believing this one.
If there was an ark being built, I could hear the doors, the hinges starting to creak as that door is beginning to shut. If this is Sodom and Gomorrah, like Star Parker talked about this morning, she worked.
Wow, that was like a really long pause. I guess you can remember the person's name, okay?
Star Parker talked about this morning, she works in Sodom and then flies home to Gomorrah here in California. You can see clouds starting to form.
You know what's interesting? Every time they bring up Sodom and Gomorrah, it's like they're kind of subtly hinting at LGBT rights. They're hinting at how evil that is or whatever. But Sodom and Gomorrah, the story in the Bible, it wasn't about LGBT rights or inclusion or any of that. It was about the two cities' ill treatment of the poor. But they have no problem with that, fascinatingly. That's not even the thing that they focus on. They don't care. What they care about is hating people from the LGBT community. Like I said, no logic. If you're coming at this with logic, you're going to be let down. It's not about logic. If you think you can arrive at their conclusions logically, you're wrong. What they're doing is they're coming at this from an angle of hating their enemy. Nothing else. When you realize they only want to hate their enemy, everything else they say makes sense.
You can see clouds starting to form. I believe, friends, in the spirit, clouds are starting to form over the state of California. This is our last call. And woe to the pulpit that does not get involved to save a child's life. Woe to the pulpit that stays silent at an hour like this.
Yeah, absolutely grotesque, dude. The fact that he's desperately trying to integrate politics and religion is dangerous and concerning. We are in a dangerous and concerning moment in U.S. history right now. We have been for the past 4 years or so. But let me lay this on you. Earlier I said I had some good news that I wanted to look at about Roe v. Wade. There are 3 main points that I want to bring up regarding Roe v. Wade. The first point that I want to bring up is abortion access is actually better now than it was 6 months ago because the pills are easily accessible by mail. USPS said they will ship Plan C pills, as they call them. Plan C pills. They'll ship them to you. To any state. Doesn't matter what their laws are. And USPS, of course being a government entity, isn't allowed to search your packages. There's no way for anybody to know what's actually in it. All of the packaging is discreet and everything else. If you want to know how to get these pills shipped to you, I believe the website you go to is plancpills.org. plancpills.org. Check the description for the link, just in case I'm incorrect on this point. I will put a link in the description, so check that if you want to take a look at it. So abortion access is in a better place now than it was 6 months ago for that reason alone. That's the first silver lining I wanted to talk about. The second silver lining is it's possible for us to enshrine this into law and bypass the Supreme Court completely. We don't have to worry about the Supreme Court. In fact, we shouldn't have been relying on the Supreme Court at all this entire time. There have been moments in U.S. history when the Democrats have had a supermajority in Congress, and it was possible for them to make a law about this and make Roe v. Wade permanent. There were times in history when they could have done that. For some reason, they didn't. But we can do it now. It's possible to do now. Well, technically we can't right now because we don't hold a supermajority in the Senate. But it is possible to do generally. It's possible to do. You know how you do it? Vote. That's how you do it. You get out there and you vote to replace Republican senators in Congress. Get out there and vote to get a majority Democrat in the Senate so that we can enshrine Roe v. Wade into law. So that's silver lining number 2. It's possible to undo what the Supreme Court just did, and we're coming up on a midterm right now. And here's the third silver lining. There's been a lot of talk from Republicans lately about banning contraception, banning gay marriage, all of these things. It is actually possible for them to do. Because they hold a majority on the Supreme Court, it's possible for them to reverse precedent in the Supreme Court. They could make being gay illegal. They could make gay marriage illegal, 2 separate issues. They could make both of those things illegal. They could also make interracial marriage illegal. Being gay, gay marriage, Roe v. Wade, interracial marriage, and then the 5th one being contraception. Those 5 things, those were mentioned in the legal draft that was leaked from the Supreme Court recently. So there's no reason to think that they're not going after those things. And as I said, there are Republicans out there right now writing bills to ban contraception, to ban condoms statewide, at the very least, in their individual states. There are congressmen out there doing those things right now. And here's the third silver lining to this. I believe they're overreaching. I think what they're doing by even mentioning banning condoms or banning birth control. I think by doing that, they are jeopardizing their chance in the midterms, which are coming up. I really think that they are about to burn themselves by bringing this up. Democrats, I don't think they had a great chance in the primary coming up, but now that Roe v. Wade has obviously been overturned, or is about to be anyways, and now that Republicans are coming out saying that they're going to ban contraception and things like that, I really think Democrats may have a significantly better chance than they did before. So that's your third silver lining. Abortion access is better now than it was 6 months ago because of the pills. We can reverse what was just done by passing legislation. And the Democrats have a much better chance to take back seats because of what Republicans are doing right now, because they're going completely unhinged at the moment. So if you're stressed, keep those three things in mind. Don't let it get you down. Just keep your head down and keep moving forward. Do not stop. Do your best and don't worry about the rest. If you're in a red state that's banning this right now, good luck and be careful and do not put yourself at risk. Do what's best for you, okay? If you disagree with me, let me know. I'm on Twitter, @TelltaleAtheist.